A new development in the DOJ sex crime probe involving Republican Congressman and Trump ally Matt Gaetz. The Florida congressman's ex-girlfriend is now, quote, worried that a key witness tried to get her to incriminate Gaetz on a recorded call. Politico citing several sources for that report. And the timing is striking, the alleged call coming soon after Gaetz' associate was indicted on a sex trafficking charge, among others. The individual placing the call is believed to be a potential sex trafficking victim. It raises questions about who would want to record Gaetz and whether others may be cooperating with an open probe, which has already featured an indictment, intense pressure, and the rarity of the feds seizing a sitting congressman's phone, while Congressman Gaetz denies all wrongdoing and says he's still at work.
Congressman Matt Gaetz here. I want to thank you for the support and love you've shown me over these last couple of weeks. Rest assured, we're still working hard for Northwest Florida, our state, and our country.
I'm joined now by Mark Caputo, senior reporter for Politico, well known for his knowledge of Florida politics. He broke this story about the talk of this taped call and what it could implicate. We're also joined by civil rights attorney Nancy Erica Smith. She represented former Fox anchor Gretchen Carlson in a harassment suit against Roger Ailes and has extensive experience in some of these related types of cases. Welcome to both of you. Mark, what did you find?
What we found, I think you set it up pretty well, is one of Matt Gaetz' ex-girlfriend, kind of his main ex-girlfriend. And when you talk to mutual friends, they said they had an open relationship. They saw other people. She had reported to them that she was nervous that the young woman who was at the center or was key to the sex trafficking of a minor charge that Gaetz' friend and associate Joel Greenberg had been hit with, that she at a certain point, after Greenberg got indicted for sex trafficking of a minor, called her Gaetz' ex-girlfriend. And Gaetz' ex-girlfriend said she didn't really want to cooperate. And she was a little nervous. She just had her kind of spidey sense tingling. She thought that she was being recorded, that it was sort of a setup phone call. And now she's worried, according to her friends, about maybe being hit with an obstruction charge or something that the prosecutors can use to get to Gaetz. The bottom line is it signifies a few things. One, very serious investigation. Two, it doesn't appear with what we know now that the feds have enough information to charge Gaetz. If they did, they probably would have by now. And three, they are exerting a lot of pressure to get to that point. So there's a lot we don't know. As we've said repeatedly, Matt Gaetz has repeatedly said he did not break the law. He neither engaged in sex with a minor, nor did he pay for prostitutes. This young woman, after she turned 18, wound up going on a trip to the Bahamas that the feds are also looking at for a possible Mann Act violation, which forbids people from transporting others across state lines to engage in prostitution. Again, Gaetz has denied all charges or all claims against him.
Mark, when you say that they're worried about the call, does that mean they have any firm information about who would be behind a recorded call? Because one thought is, yes, authorities could be. Everybody's seen that in the movies. Another is it could be recorded, but for some other reason. Someone's recording it because of their own measures that they're taking without government affiliation. Do you have any specifics on that?
I have no specifics on that. What I do know is that she was concerned that the young woman at the center of this was working with the federal government. She was worried about her own legal exposure to the degree she had any. So beyond that, I think we're purely speculating because she's worried about her own, let's say, legal standing, being charged. There is a sense among a lot of the people who have been interviewed that the feds have basically told people, look, you can be on the right side of this or on the wrong side of this. They've really communicated the message that the wrong side of this is the Matt Gaetz side.
Nancy, what do you think?
Well, it's really interesting. Florida, if the young women are both in Florida, Florida is a two-party consent state where you're not allowed to tape record somebody without their consent. But prosecutors very frequently do consent wiretaps, which they are allowed to do and they get permission to do. So unless and this young woman, I think from your reporting, did have a lawyer. So I tend to think that she was working with the prosecution, and this is probably a lawyer probably wouldn't let her do a taping because it's illegal in Florida. I tend to think that probably, the prosecutor did a consent wiretap here. A consent wiretap is something that should be, very scary to Gaetz, because it sounds like...
Right. I mean, Nancy, what you're getting at is that, what you're getting at, Nancy, is, again, I want to be as precise as possible. As I said earlier, it's possible that someone's taking their own measures. Whether or not they have good legal counsel, or whether or not they might be breaking a new rule about the consent of the taping, that's one possibility. But you're saying, as someone who's worked around these kind of cases, that you think it is a more likely inference that this kind of action at this juncture is being taken with the feds. And if that's the case, you're saying that is bad news for Gaetz, because why?
Because then she's cooperating and she's trying to protect herself, because prostitution is illegal for both the buyer and the seller. So she's trying to protect herself, and she's fearful. And she was saying that to the ex-girlfriend, apparently. So if she's afraid for herself, what would she be afraid for if she wasn't engaged in illegal activity? And she's right. Prostitution is illegal on both sides. So he's the purveyor, and apparently the pimp is Greenberg. He's the one who procures. There's all these Venmos, including Venmos, where the reason for the payment from Gaetz is ass and kisses and very suggestive reasons for the payment. If you put all these pieces together, this is not looking good, because Greenberg is now cooperating. It looks like this woman might be cooperating. The ex-girlfriend is afraid. If nobody did anything wrong, why would anybody be afraid? Why would the ex-girlfriend not want to talk to the authorities when a member of Congress is accused of trafficking and Mann Act violations? The Mann Act is bringing women across state lines for sex. If it was somebody I knew, I would definitely cooperate if I thought they were not guilty. Of course, you have a right not to, but this is a member of Congress accused of very wrong things, horrible things. And if his colleagues are afraid to come forward and are taping each other, I think it looks very bad for him.
Mark?
I don't want to speculate too much, but when you look at the indictment, Joel Greenberg, among the many things he was indicted for, was making false IDs. And also in the indictment, he looked up the personal information of this young woman when she was still a teenager, still underage, when she was 17. There is some speculation about whether he made her a fake ID or not, and whether that's another possible infraction, violation, potential crime that the feds might have looked at in going to her and exerting pressure on the young woman to testify or to speak to them.
Another serious crime.
That would be, and would create, again, potential pressure. And this speaks again to all of these intricate parts. And again, we've reported, and I'll reiterate in fairness, that Congressman Gaetz denies all wrongdoing, and we'll see where the evidence leads. But it does suggest a lot of heat, a very active investigation, in addition to them having his phone. On the political side, Mark, you have here Papa Gaetz. You know, as we learn about different characters, this is one with a more political history. Papa Gaetz tells you everything you need to know about Matt Gaetz. Quite a headline. Quote, there are a lot of people who owe him favors. They're repaying those favors by staying silent about his son, one Florida operative said, speaking on condition of anonymity. Walk us through that.
Matt Gaetz' father was a very powerful state lawmaker. He rose, Don Gaetz did, to be Florida Senate president. And the similarity between Don Gaetz and his son, very smart, good speakers, and they didn't suffer fools or give a chance to their enemies to recover. And the difference between Don Gaetz and Matt Gaetz, I think, is that while Don Gaetz would get toxic or caustic, I should say, once in a while, I remember he told me, I make sure to coat my words with honey because that way it makes them easier to swallow. Matt Gaetz does not live by that credo. So there's kind of a major difference between them. Don Gaetz, prior to going into public service, made a lot of money in the hospice industry. The family does have deep pockets. And then on the political side that you mentioned, Matt Gaetz has been fundraising off of this for his legal defense. If he does get charged, if this does go to court, he's going to fight it, and he's going to have a stable of well-paid, very experienced attorneys whose job it is to raise enough reasonable doubt so that there's a hung jury, or, as we discussed in the last segment, or as you did, that there's an acquittal. So stay tuned and understand that the prosecutors understand that they want to have an indictment that sticks and would result in a conviction. The Middle District of Florida is not the most liberal of places. It's a place where someone of Matt Gaetz's political ilk would have salience with a potential jury pool.
A great point that you make. And again, in fairness to the legal process, you're talking looking around the corner, which is what any good prosecutor has to do as well, particularly in what are called these high-profile investigations. You're dealing with these kind of individuals, someone in the co-equal branch of government, someone who, as we mentioned, is denied all wrongdoing, while there is a lot of intricate evidence, including some of your reporting. So I think we've gotten a really good and fair insight into quite a story down there that hasn't gone away. Mark Caputo and Nancy Erica Smith, thanks to both of you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.